All right, so I think we're going to get started. And hi, everyone. Welcome to our Search Insights webinar. Today, we're going to be diving into 4 lessons from e-commerce winners and the tactics that they use to drive success. And hopefully, you'll be able to replicate some of these winning strategies. If you're not common with e-commerce, don't worry about it because SEO is very applicable across the board to many different industries as well. And today we'll be presenting. So it's myself. I'm Emily French. I am a product marketing manager at Similarweb. I focus primarily on our search tools, one of my favorite parts of the platform, but I might be biased. And I started at Similarweb actually as an account manager, and I helped SMBs to leverage our platform from SEO, PPC, and other best practices in the competitive landscape and understanding that. So some of those tactics we'll be diving into today, and I'll hand it over to you, Baruch.
Thank you, Emily. Do you mind sharing just the screen and the deck with us so we could all see it?
Sorry about that.
It's okay. So hi, everyone. While Emily is getting here the slide, my name is Baruch Toledano, and I lead Similarweb acquisition solutions, or channel acquisition solution, and with a lot of extensive experience behind search. As for my role at Similarweb, I build products for performance marketers, many people on this call today. I have experience with SEO folks for various types of industries and sizes of businesses, from the very large one who have multi-geos SEO team with content for a variety of product offering, and down to people who are just starting in SEO. So I've been in the industry for over 12 years. Also, I have a strong background in e-commerce, where I led Magento in its early days, the e-commerce platform. But I guess my biggest affinity is into data and large data sets. And I like the anomalies we get with a lot of data. And Similarweb is definitely the part where we really shine. We bring a lot of different data and bring data models around it through a mix of different sources. And today, this is exactly the part where we're going to share. So if we go to the next slide, I don't think I can see.
Can you see my screen?
We cannot see a screen.
Okay, give me a second. Sorry about that. I'm going to try this again. What about now?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
So let's dive into the next slide. So couple of things. We do every year a study about what we call the Digital 100. We look at companies that basically are really shining online. And this year, actually, we took a further study and we wanted to look specifically around e-commerce in even more granular details. And we wanted to see not only the big companies that clearly are having a major impact in our life, Amazon and the eBay, but also looking at the smaller companies in the e-commerce space who are disrupting. And they are disrupting for a variety of ways, either through creative marketing, through proper cross-channel collaboration, and just having a disciplined execution, and leaning into understanding the audience better, and even bringing good technical SEO. So today, we're going to focus on 4 of them. And specifically, we're going to tell you the stories behind how they got to their success. Those stories are going to take you to a variety of e-commerce spectrum. We're going to look at some of these wild organic growth and gains with Wildgrains. Then we're going to jump into ELOREA, which is a Korean beauty, and how it actually capitalized on the Korean beauty trend. We're also going to look at some of the best product pages that we have seen designed by Birdbuddy. And lastly, we're going to show you how PR can actually shine and speak the language of the SERP together with Greenies, which is providing lots of different products for dogs. So why don't we start with the first one with Emily, and we'll dive into Wildgrains.
Awesome. Thanks, Baruch. So Wildgrain is a really great story for content and SEO working together. So Wildgrain are a frozen carbs delivery service. So if you're hungry during this presentation, just wait to load your carbs at the end. They're categorized in Similarweb's food and drinks category and in our digital 100, as Bao mentioned, which is our rank of fastest growing companies. They were ranked in 3rd place. So 33% of their overall growth was thanks to organic traffic, and their organic channel actually grew by 1 million visits, which was 600% year over year. So that's one of the reasons we've chosen them. So how did they do it? They did a lot of brand awareness. So as we can see on the chart here, their core drivers were organic and direct traffic. They spend big on brand awareness rather than paid search, which is actually quite unusual for an e-commerce company. And we see that paid search, which is our red line here, being much higher, usually. So they've gone big on brand awareness, and this has had a really positive impact on their SEO performance. But there is actually more to the story than that. So excuse the puns, we have many throughout this presentation, but they're carb loading their content with blog posts. And we looked at their organic pages, and 75% of their pages are actually blog posts. And they've used a lot of uncompetitive long tail keywords which are actually low in volume and have low keyword difficulty. So I know that like creating a blog isn't anything new. We're not recommending that you build any old blog strategy, but what they've done is a really unorthodox way of going about this. So in D2C, creating really great blog content is one way to stand out against really big marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart, because these players aren't really writing this type of content. So it really gives you an advantage as an SMB or an independent company if you're able to do this properly, and Wildgrain has done this really successfully. So here's a fun example to start with, and it's a little bit different. So when we do keyword research, we usually start with a seed keyword. So in this example, it could be bread or pasta. And then we see that people are searching for, health tips on what's better, rice versus bread or potato versus rice. So there are plenty different combinations as to what people are searching for. And the amount of blogs that we can create from that are probably 20 different combinations. But what Wildgrain have actually done differently is they've clustered all of those search terms together in one long tail keyword by recognizing the audience intent. And what they've done, as you can see in this title, is what's better, bread versus pasta versus rice versus potatoes. And this has worked for them really successfully, as they've ranked for 714 keywords, which is exceptional for a blog. And like I mentioned, these are uncompetitive keywords. So they're not very high in volume, but they actually drive clicks. So that's one of the reasons this has been so successful for them in ranking. Okay, so SEO, as you can see, it's a long game. So when we're publishing content, as you can see, in January 2023, they had 35 blog posts that weren't driving really very much traffic. And by February 2024, they have 94. So we see that's really steady growth in terms of producing content itself. So this is why the long game is really important. To make content assets reliable, which is what you want from a blog, you really want to set goals around the number of pages that reach a certain amount of visits. So depending on your company size, you might want to set a goal of 100 visits per blog. Okay, and then as a bigger company, you might want to set that bar a little bit higher. But these are really standard blogs that you can go to and refresh over time and build from there. So if we look at this chart in January 2023, Wildgrain didn't even have one page that was getting more than 100 visits. It was really, really slow, steady growth. But by November, we see that they started to build momentum and they started to rank for more and more blog posts here. So if you measure content in this way, you don't have to become overly reliant on one or two pages that are getting massive traffic growth, because the risk in that is that Google can make an algorithm update, and then whatever traffic was being driven to those two pages can shift overnight. And so that's really a risky way of going about building content.
Emily, do you mind going
Yeah.
back a few slides?
Yeah.
Go back one more.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So do you want to add a little bit more about the type of
Yeah,
that
definitely.
how they actually got some authority here?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry about that. I meant to add that as well. So they actually had an EAT strategy when it comes to these blogs. So that really helps to build authority and trust. And what they've done is something a little bit differently. So they actually have authored all of their blogs by nutritionists here. So they've built that trust score with Google by every single one of their blogs being authored by a licensed PhD nutritionist. So it's called Your Money, Your Life. Some of you might have heard of that before. And maybe bread and pasta doesn't seem like it belongs within that category specifically. But because this is more related to nutritional value, it starts to veer into health. So what they did is they've added that along with a disclaimer on every blog post saying that if you need medical assistance, reach out to your doctor. So that also builds the trust behind the blogs that they're creating. And that's a really good point for me to go back to, Belle. So thank you for getting me to go back to that for a second, because I skipped over it. All right. So we were here, right? So how does Wildgrain tackle branded SEO to win more traffic? Well, 57% of Wildgrain's organic traffic comes from branded search terms. And so as they build brand awareness, a significant amount of their branded searches actually comes from reviews. So that is like 2,000 monthly searches, and it continues to grow as their brand becomes more popular. So what did they do to really leverage that? So they created their own review page. So again, they didn't follow, they didn't follow SEO best practices. There's no schema markup on this page, but what they've done, and it's worked really well is that they've gotten their customer success team to really push thousands of reviews to their review page. And that's really worked successfully for them. So review searches overall don't tend to have a very high click-through rate. Someone goes onto the SERP and they get what they need without actually clicking through. So that seems to be a significant amount of zero clicks, but that still leaves 28% of people that are ready to click through. And what did that mean in their case? Well, in Wildgrain's case, that means that 57% of their review-related searches were landing on their website. So they were really able to leverage and capture that, which is really great because those are high-intent customers who are really ready to convert. I think I'm going to go back a few slides. Just sorry about that, because I think I missed an important one. Never mind. Okay, so the SEO tip here is to make sure that you work with your branded content. Reviews, as we mentioned, the About Us is another great way to leverage those customers who are looking for reviews, who are looking to understand more about your brand, and bring those customers directly to your site instead of a third-party site. Your brand teams and your SEO should work really closely together, especially in this case. And for cancellation and return pages, it might seem like a negative, but you really want to own that narrative and get people to come directly to you. And same with competitors and alternatives. You really want to leverage that potentially on your own site. You might even create a page as to why you're better than a competitor. So to summarize, you want to target low competition, long tail keywords. You want to potentially templatize and scale your content. And in terms of branded SEO, you shouldn't be afraid of really owning all queries, even the ones that might seem negative. And on to great smells.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I see that we have some questions on the audience. We will definitely get to a point at the end and addressing your question and all the hand raisers. We'll do our very best to address them, or we'll follow up with more information. So our next story is about ELOREA. And ELOREA is an interesting case study, and especially around what some people may refer to have been maybe in the search world is what is called the entity SEO and how it actually helps them. So if we go to the next slide, ELOREA is basically a Korean perfume, really targeting the American trend and beauty in the Korean beauty. And they really are embodying that essence throughout their approach into their audience. They have gotten 37% of their traffic through organic means. And really in 2023, it was the year of the breakthrough that they had. And we're going to look into the data of how impressive this thing actually was. So if we go to the next slide, what you see here is that actually ELOREA has seen the growth mostly through the middle of 2023. So it's not that they were known out there, but they really saw that growth for half a year, which kind of like makes even more impressive their success. And we can see it throughout all the different channels. Now, they do go back in around end of 2022, where they actually started to put their perfume in places like Saks Fifth Avenue and wanted to see if there's an interest with it. And really starting to understand how the audience might be interested in actually buying their stuff, and fuel it actually through the offline means and seeing what's going to happen also on the online means. So if we go to the next slide, actually at Similarweb, we're able to provide you with information regarding the demand trend. And here what we see is actually the demand to these particular type of Korean perfume and Korean beauty product actually started in the United States somewhere online at the first part of 2023. And so they were basically at the right place, being ready to really seeing when they can actually jump into that particular niche and entering that market and expanding very rapidly. So how did they get there? Let's go to the next slide. How did they actually get into the top of all these Google searches? So it's interesting. If you go to the next slide, what you may be able to see here is that they actually, you see a lot of their traffic comes from a branded keyword. And you would be like, well, how could it be that this brand, where 84% of all the searches are related to their branded term? And there is an absolute demand, as we know, with branded term, that people are actually interested. And so it was interesting to see, like, how do you actually get into that level of brand recognition? Here in this slide, what we see is that in many cases, the Korean fragrance, you would probably expect to see a lot more generic results associated with Google, right? So we wouldn't necessarily expect to see some popular perfume, but we would expect to see more of a high-level sort of coverage. So, for example, if you were to look for Italian pizza, Google will probably give you a lot of explanations about the pizza, the calorie counts, how to make it, maybe a knowledge panel and such. Even if you search for American perfume, you will get an organic results that are pointing to some American perfumer. And the same thing if you were to do actually that even on a French one. So then you ask the question, so how did they actually get so high into these, like, how did ELOREA itself get them so high into the homepage with this branded term? So we said, all right, let's take a look into their homepage, because a lot of the traffic that we saw was driven towards the on-page. If you are looking into the elements within the homepage, it really trying to bring the essence of this brand, right? It's about cleanliness, perfumery, and these type of things are important, but for them, this is part of who they brand. So the only aspect that we saw on the on-page are focusing on Korean perfumery, which we could find it in the title tag and some of the words in the body text, but overall, it's fairly minimal. Also, when we look at their About Us page, we can see that they're using some images with text. Clearly, Google can read your images. But we don't necessarily see what we would refer to as more of the traditional SEO elements that people would look into. And so we were still very much puzzled. There's still very little information about how Google choose to rank them. So in this slide, we started to get some insight, but an initial insight to give us a sense of what's going on here. So what we see here is that actually in the backlink profile, a lot of the anchor text with those articles related to Korean perfume actually are pointing to an anchor text that has to do with their own brand. So we wanted to see, okay, so what else are they doing? So when we started to dig into their product pages, Korea is not necessarily featured on this site, but what we see is small entities across the website. So every product page, for example, has one Korean ingredient, for example, listed in their description, despite them actually not targeting the Korea as a country. Furthermore, when we look in the next slide, what we can see is actually when we're looking across the web, we see that the brand is highly associated with Korean perfumery on social media accounts, including, of course, their own, but also through a variety of very important articles that talk about these Korean perfumery trend, both on New York Times, on Allure, and really making those associations. So what happened is that Google actually reads this description, it understands what's behind it, and connects the brand entity itself with Korea to understand that this is relevant for this particular type of trend. For those of you who are going back probably from an SEO, there's actually a patent in 2019 that Google talks about how it looks around the web to actually better understand and makes those relationships about your entity. Furthermore, if we go to the next slide, we can see that ELOREA is actually showing up in a variety of things like listicles around Korean perfume brands. So Google basically come back and look at it and say, okay, this is connected to the brand and the brand entity is associated with Korea. So it fits into that. They also get it from the About Us page. And of course, what we just saw, which were the social element and other articles that were linking to them with the ELOREA being equivalent to a Korean perfumery brand. So in summary, what you probably want to take out of it is that, first of all, having a page on your site that describes your entity is definitely an important part. And we could see it both on their About Us page and also in the essence of where they are. And also the other part, sorry, if you can just, where we are.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, go back one slide. Thank. Yeah. The second part is Google will build your entire brand association entity not for across the web. So it's not just associated to just necessarily what's on your website itself, but actually all the other pages like your social pages and other important publications that people may take part. And then lastly, of course, having your brand associated in third-party website will definitely help and makes your entity even more, getting a lot more validation for Google in those associations. Now, I was left with a bit puzzled of like, okay, so what, are they the only one competing here? And so when we actually look at these some of close competition, they don't mention specifically that they are the Korean perfumery, even though they're based from Korea. And subsequently, Google doesn't even rank them for the core terms that ELOREA is actually showing up, and Google doesn't associate them through this entity-based approach of their own knowledge graph. So in summary, basically, what you can take from here is actually two things. One, we have the data to actually showing you an emerging trends. Emerging trends may not necessarily always come from what you might think is happening with just one particular keyword, but you can actually see them from an offline, but you can actually see them also from social information. We have the information for you to actually identify this trend. And they were also at the right place. And then the second part, of course, is building your business entity around it, as we mentioned, in a variety of places. And Google was strong enough to actually go and pick it up. So onward to our Birdbuddy.
Thanks, Baruch. So I see there are some questions flowing into the chat. Just so you know, we'll be answering all of your Q&As at the end of the webinar, but keep them coming. And yeah, we're glad to see that you're so interactive. We're going from great smells to capturing pictures of birds in this next story, which is a really interesting, creative content story. So My Birdbuddy is an e-com smart tech company selling birdhouses with cameras. So you can take pictures of birds that are coming to visit your garden. So they're listed in our house and garden category, and they ranked 5th overall in our digital 100. So about a 5th of their website traffic is actually organic, and they doubled their organic traffic this year. And thanks to their out-of-the-box content strategy, I think this had a lot to do with it. So let's dive in. So they have a traditional e-com growth model, which is led by paid. So we can see the paid line here in red is still pretty strong. But we do see that they also have growth during certain seasons. So we see that between April and July and during the holiday season. So you can call those two kind of peak seasons the buy it yourself peak, when bird watchers are really interested in buying this product for themselves. So that's when birds are migrating in the spring. And then we have another buy it for others peak, which was during the holiday season when people are looking for fun gift ideas. And as you can see, there's that big spike in November and December. Interestingly, what we saw here is that year over year, organic, paid, and direct have really grown substantially. And it was during both those seasons. And on another side, I'll show you why in contrast, this is really impressive. So when we look at these big players like Walmart and Target and Best Buy, they've actually declined year over year during the Black Friday peak, which was really interesting. And overall, we saw that demand was actually up by 0.5%. So we noticed that most of this growth was actually experienced by D2C companies and independent companies. So what we know is that there are still a lot of opportunities out there. So what's driving Birdbuddy's sky high growth? So similar to ELOREA, their demand is up. And demand analysis is really looking at this from an SEO perspective, and that's not done often. So what we did is we actually combined, we look at search volume, and sometimes we look at how search volume deviates along with seasonality, but year over year trends are also really important to watch, whether those are rising or declining. So by grouping keywords associated with bird feeders along with their own branded terms, we see that they were growing by about 65% year over year. So some of the key terms that we saw were trending here were bird feeder camera, which grew by almost 30%, smart bird feeder, which grew by almost 100%, and their own branded term, Birdbuddy, grew by about 56%. So this was really interesting. So their brand is strong. It's definitely driving growth, but it's actually their product related terms that are driving even more growth, such as bird feeder camera, smart bird feeder, which were keywords that were driving about 50,000 organic clicks in December alone. And by capturing all of that on a single page, which is peacocking, so to speak. So one of their product pages that's ranking for almost 150 keywords and gets 9% of overall traffic share for their overall website. And interestingly, for SEO is ranking for a few different search intents here. So usually we're told that you should only add one intent per page, but that's not really the case that we're seeing now, especially related to smart tech in the e-commerce space. Or even more broadly in SaaS or the B2B space, because people really want to understand how technology works within one page itself. They really want to gain confidence from the technology, what it does, that it's not stealing their data, especially in this AI era. So we see that those are, there's a few intents here per page. So you can actually visit their website yourself. We're going to add a link to this deck, but they have really, really fun content, and it's educational info about how their product works. They include FAQs. They include really educational content. They have really clear, simple CTAs. And so it's actually really similar to a top seller page on Amazon. So you can pay to have all these extras to your Amazon page, all these extra elements. And you can actually go there for inspiration just to see what they're recommending you add to a page to really make it compelling. Or you can visit pages like this that have kind of all you need within one page. In this case, less is actually not better. It's actually great to include all of the FAQs and everything on this page. And it's not just standard blog content that you can create. They've actually productized their content. Their product takes pictures of birds, and they've turned that into a really fun meme generator, which is a really fun and interactive way for customers to be a part of this community. And this is also really great considering that SG is coming, and we anticipate that SG is going to take a slice of informational searches. So what it can do is, create really interesting brand. It can't do, sorry, is create really interesting brand ideas. So you don't necessarily need to create a meme generator, but you could think about what your product does and how you can create more interactive content. So this drove 4% of Birdbuddy's traffic to their website. And also it came from search, social as well. So it's really great, sustainable content. So although my Birdbuddy also has a solid organic strategy, they're a very giftable product. And as we saw that boost in November and December, so we saw they actually boosted their spend by 10 times between October to December. So what we also see that they did is their ads very much match their landing page. So we can see that a lot of their perfect gift messaging relates to their landing page. So we see that within the landing page itself, it's themed for the holiday. They have a clear CTA at the top of the page. And also we know that Google kind of prioritizes or has a score for the relevancy of your ad with what you actually offer. So we imagine that this has also really helped to drive growth over that season that we were seeing in November and December. So some key takeaways here. So you can turn your high demand into brand recognition, attract more eyeballs over the holiday season, and match your ad to your landing page. You can productize your content. So we know that SG is coming and they can create content that's interactive and unique, as we saw with this meme generator. And amplify your demand with a strong landing page. So include a lot of CTAs, FAQs, reviews, video. You can get inspiration, as we mentioned, from Amazon's top pages, and less isn't always more. And on to Greenies.
Thank you, Emily. This is such a, I learned about bird feeder through this story, which was quite impressive. And now we're going to move it actually into a different type of pet food. It's all about Greenies. So just quickly about Greenies, if we go to the next slide, Greenies is essentially sell all these like healthy vet recommended pet treats, right? So that pet lovers want to buy. They came #1 in our pet care category. 28% of their traffic is organic, and they've seen a tremendous growth in 2023. So what is happening with them? So actually, if we go to the next slide, what you can see here, Emily, can we move? Yeah, thank you. Oops, go back one. Go back one. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So what we've seen here is that in organic and direct, they're definitely growing. You can see it in the middle part. And classically, once they got their brand really known, they started to slow in the red some of their paid traffic. And later on, actually, while they were growing organically and with the direct traffic, they've actually even further surged their paid search. And it's actually not something you necessarily would expect with how they actually leverage the paid in a different way. But we're going to dive into all of this. So let's start first with their organic approach and how are they actually directed this traffic. So if we go to the next slide, when we looked into their link profile, it was pretty impressive. We could see some of the best publication with his Business Insider, New York Times, Globe Newswire, ABC News, like really from very prominent and authoritative website. So really an impressive backlink profile. Okay, so next slide. So we ask ourselves the question, how does a site like this actually build such a high quality backlink? For one, if we go to the next slide, we can take the approach that, Emily, if we can go to the next slide, we can take the approach of reaching out to folks and being able to sort of, hey, can you add me into your backlink? But clearly, you know, this is going to take you a while, and we all know how it actually may end, that you keep chasing them and you don't always going to get the attention. Okay, so what else they did? So like a good marketing team, if we go to our next slide, they introduce what is called the canine dental crisis. So in about the summer of last year, Greenies basically collaborated with this American fashion designer called Christian Siriano to actually raise the entire awareness to this to the canine dog dental crisis. What Siriano basically did, he made a design that is matching both the actual of the dog and together with the owner, and they went with a big design, and they call it the Hans Toothless campaign. This basically created a lot of interest into the outside world of actually looking into that particular partnership. So if we go to the next slide, that basically brought them to start ranking to a lot of different things around that particular treats and how they're actually going and addressing the dental health associated with that particular canine. And the truth is that you started to see all these different keywords associated to treating the health and raising the awareness to the dental health of the dogs right away. And we could see it also, if we go to the next slide, throughout many types of publication, whether it was from a fashion publication, whether it was for dogs or for pet lovers. At the end of the day, they got a lot of attention, and this is what started to drive a lot of these high quality type of links into their website. So few things from an SEO perspective as you take away from the story here, if you go to the next slide. So this seems like a very digital PR, but how can we as potentially a performance marketer and an SEO can actually go and help? So definitely, we all know influencer marketing is here and it's here to stay. And as an SEO, you can actually advise whom to work with and what is the SEO benefit of these actual folks that can raise the awareness into your product. The second thing is working with the digital PR, really advising them, whether it is your own team or whether it is an agency that you work with. It's not just about citation, but clearly you need to make sure that the anchor text should be there. And in the big campaign that they're finding themselves, and having a tight association definitely can help in making the awareness and make a big difference. And then lastly, SEOs, or for that matter, cannot continue to work necessarily always in a silo. So it's not just about your website, and it's not just about fixing technical element within your own website. You've got to find better ways, or regular ways, I would say, not only to collaborate with the content folks, but actually work with your PR team, because this can really create a boost to what you do. We can see here, if we go to the next slide, this entire effort and how it actually finds itself both in raising their brand awareness and getting, of course, that organic traffic that we saw here around August. So we were still intrigued, if we go to the next slide, about what is actually happening with their paid. Because you would think, okay, so they are benefiting right now from getting the organic awareness that they needed. This is everyone's dream. The brand is known. We can start seeing even the traffic keeps going to the right. And so we wanted to better understand what are they doing from a paid search perspective. So if we go to the next slide, what we can see here is that they were actually taking a different approach when we're looking into the keywords themselves. Emily, can you advance to the next slide? If back in May, when they were trying to get the awareness into what they're doing with the dog, right? In August, the story was actually going about the cat. And in fact, when we are looking into where they put the majority of their money that drove traffic, they are not known about the cat. And so they went after branded terms like Chewy, competitive terms like Chewy cat food, and really trying to target them. Why is that a great opportunity? Because you are already bringing a brand affinity. You're bringing the brand known for the pet food and the pet treats that you have. This played a fantastic opportunity for them to double down by starting to create the demand that they had on the dogs, really rising and lining up to start introducing the other parts and creating that association to the cat, to the cat products that they wanted to introduce into this category that they want. So the story behind it is like really amazing. One last thing that I wanted to leave you with is a very interesting sort of perspective about how they thought about how people are actually searching. So if we go to the next slide, they are definitely humanizing the pets for their audience of the things that basically dog lovers refer to. So in many ways, dog owners in many ways are like parents to their pet. So they went with specific keywords associated next to it that are, and the modifiers that are more human-like, like anti-inflammatory for dogs or probiotic for dogs, things that we would refer to in the same way we would be speaking about other human or kids in the same way that they would be searching. And that really plays very nice to them of how they are addressing the audience that is actually looking for food or treats or health associated ways to treat their loved one, the pets. Last but not least, they're not just staying in their own website. So for sure, they're driving traffic to the website, but they're playing a full multi-channel perspective. And in that scenario, we saw them on the SERP. You choose wherever part you take, whether it is on the Chewy or whether it is on Walmart or Amazon or Petco. They're definitely ranking up there with their own product, and they're owning the SERP. So key takeaways from this is definitely creative digital PR. You got to think probably something different if you want to break through, not just through necessarily just outreach, but really think about natural ways of getting those backlinks that will build your authority. Definitely partnering with influencer played a very beautiful way for Greenies. Humanizing the names of the product names and the associated way that people are actually searching. And then lastly, as we saw, they didn't just necessarily look at the view of the search and look at the entire holistic view behind the search and how they can actually leverage their spend properly in different times of the year, working well both as an SEO with the SEO and the company's priorities of promoting a new category for their cats.
So we're just going to summarize here a little bit about Similarweb. So Similarweb allows you to really see all of the insights that we've covered today. So these have been really amazing success stories, and all of the data that we've extracted to be able to show you how they were able to unpick this growth and dig into their various strategies in SEO and PPC. So what Similarweb does is it enables you to see your competitive landscape, allows you to uncover new ideas and what's driving actual traffic to your website and your competitors' websites. Since the way people search is constantly shifting along with the SERP itself, we created search tools that are up to date with daily data, so you can monitor these search habits and behaviors as those shifts take place, both for SEO and PPC. And our data is gathered from multiple sources. So we look at both search and the SERP, and we really rely on understanding real user behavior, which is all infused into our data methodology. So taking into account all of these sources, we're really able to provide an accurate view of what's happening out there in the online world. So that's a really quick overview of what Similarweb is and does. And we're going to dive straight into the chat to answer some questions.
Okay, so let's see. One question that was asked, can you give an example of a competitive word versus an uncompetitive word? Sorry if I'm asking something obvious, you're just curious. We are trying to provide you with information about several things regarding the competitive landscape. When it comes to a keyword, in many ways, one indicator that is definitely would be there that the more the broad the terms, the more search volume a keyword may have, and that topic may have, and so that entire topic, you can make a lot of assumptions that it's going to be competitive. And so the broader the keywords themselves, which typically will have a higher search volume, which then lend itself to have a more competition. The second indicator that we bring you is what we call sometimes the keyword difficulty or the reverse of it is what we call sometimes the zero click. Next to each keywords that we surface through the keyword research that we bring, we're going to tell you how much, what is the percentage of the zero click we saw. So if there's a smaller zero click, you probably is a nice one that you probably want to jump into. And also we'll talk a little bit about the keyword difficulty itself, which can give you sort of like a benchmark into whether it's something worth pursuing or not.
Great. We have another really nice question about where do I find the backlinks analysis for my site in Similarweb?
Do you want to take it, or I can take it?
Sure. Well, what's really fun is we've recently launched a backlinks analysis tool within Similarweb itself. So you can find that within the platform. And that really enables you to easily put in your website and see all of the backlinks that are generating that you're getting from backlinks on that page specifically. Baruch, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically we added it to part of our research capability. You can put your own website, but you can put also someone else's website and understand sort of like the backlink profile, how they gain or lost the backlink over time, and seeing actually when was the first time we saw it and when was the last time we saw it, the difficulty, the authority that you would expect to see. And those are the type of backlink information that we would surface on any domain that we have data on. So any more questions that are coming up? So, okay, so there was a question here about the point of trust and the PhD author. How does Google know about the credibility of the author beyond the title, or what are other trust building options in the industry where PhD is not really applicable? Great question. I think there's a couple of things. First, if you work for an e-commerce website, most likely you know your product really well. You know your product and the way people buy it. You know the habits of why they buy it. You design the product for the purpose of them buying. And so these expertise are not necessarily have to be all PhD, but definitely being subject matter expert in why you ended up selling those type of products on your website. The second thing is you can bring and host different content writer who are expert matter. You can bring this in terms of interviews that you bring on the website, blog posts that are written by guest posts of those people that have the authority within the industry. So there's a variety of ways you can actually augment people from the outside that have the name. Again, you can find them both on social media. You can find them also on particular publications. But you can also reach out to the ones that actually internally and bring that trust. We would say that it actually is recommended to give voices of more expertise within your company and to actually highlight them throughout your blog. It does definitely help that folks have it, but it's not always a guarantee, but it's definitely something that can help. And as we saw in the story here, this definitely played a role into the success into the success there.
Great.
Yeah.
Have we covered everything? Do we have any other questions? It doesn't seem like we do. I have one. Have we covered this? How is AI affecting the SERP and the click-through rate of other organic results?
Yeah. So I think this is probably a big question, especially since yesterday, big announcements that we were all probably waiting for Google announcements about AI and SGE and search generated experience. So definitely, there's no doubt that there is the AI race that we all are hearing and listening, and we might be all concerned about it. The reality is that we are actually now evaluating some of these presents. We don't necessarily see it with many queries. We see them more in sort of like informational queries more often. But we also want to better understand right now that it's in more hands, at least in the United States, the implication that we see in terms of people actually click through, and would they click on the answers, or are they happy with what they got? This is the advantage we have with our large data set that provides us a visibility into, do people are satisfied with what they have. We also notice that not in all cases we see the SGE result at the top. Sometimes they are being pushed down. Whether they're being pushed down, of course, by Google putting the sponsored result ahead of time, or whether they don't necessarily always have the proper answer or the right answer, or if they're not sure, we might see it actually going even further down in the search engine result page. So definitely we are on to an interesting change. You will see us reflecting this more in our reports in the coming months. And we are actually analyzing the implication in terms of user interest, whether they get their question answered or whether they got the information query there. But we're not necessarily know the full implication in terms of would people only gravitate to those answers. Keep in mind, Google need to train their own models through the content, and a lot of the content that the expert probably here on the call as well from your companies is providing. And so they will be continue to looking into the type of content to present this. And in many cases, they give attribution to the sources by which they actually quoted the information. So interesting time, definitely.
Yes. Very, very different times when it comes to search, but we're capturing it all. And I hope that you really enjoyed this presentation today and that you learned something. If you're not familiar with Similarweb, you should definitely head over to our website and see what it's all about. And maybe even start a trial and see how those search tools work in practice. And if you're already a customer of ours, then please feel free to reach out to us if you do have any questions about anything that you learned today.